the first hiccup that we had was the first importation of coffee beans. Yeah, and we ordered it online in one of those online suppliers out of the States. I think it was a few £100 of coffee that we placed as our first order. It was a couple $1,000 worth of coffee, if I recall, and it was promptly seized by customs and incinerated. So that was the first roadblock where we said, okay, did our business just die as soon as we started? Because
I always imagined having a space where, I mean, I'll just say it plainly, like I wanted somewhere where someone in a vest, a short pants, and a slippers could sit down next to someone in a suit, and it's completely normal. They are feeling both comfortable. There's no table service. There's no reservation.
In a perfect world, if the legislation was more accepting and lenient to the importation of and just the supply chain itself, just internationally, to get access to premium beans or the beans that you want to work with, is just good.
Welcome to the Caribbean Coffee Collective podcast, where we tell the coffee stories of the people and places across the Caribbean. Today we have a very awesome conversation about to take place with Full Bloom Coffee Roasters, founders Kiel, Robertson, and Joe. Welcome to the podcast today, guys. How are you doing?
Hey, Aaron. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation because I've been following you guys for a while. And first of all, like just your packaging, the pictures that you share are just incredibly, eye-popping and catching. And I find that, that's like one of the first things, those attentions to details. Nice. And then, the work that you guys have been doing. So I'm really excited to be able to have this conversation for it all to be shared.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks
as well.
Yeah, yeah. So you guys are co-founders of Full Bloom Coffee Roasters. First tell us how you got into coffee.
All right. You want me to start this one, Joe?
Kyle, you go ahead first.
All right, yeah. Full Bloom was founded in 2016. But for a few years before that, I had just always been into coffee. I was a guy in the office that had a little French press. I was always trying to get my hands on nice coffee beans. I just liked it a lot. In 2015, I had gone to Thailand for 6 weeks. I was there with my girlfriend at the time, and we were just kind of making our way around and checking stuff out. Just randomly, I ended up staying at a hostel in Chiang Mai that was right next door to a coffee roastery. I had never really seen coffee roasting happen before up until this point. So I walked down to that roastery. I watched them roast coffee. It was like a cement mixer, repurposed with like an actual fire underneath it. And they were just turning the cement mixer, roasting coffee inside of it. Super rudimentary. But I got really fascinated. So we came back from Thailand. At the end of early 2015, I took whatever money I had at the time and I bought a Bemo, just a small countertop coffee roaster, and started roasting. I spoke to a few friends who were working with Caribbean coffee at the time, Caribbean roasters at the time. I got some green Brazilian beans, very small batches from them, and I was just testing it out. I started ordering very small batches of green coffee beans from Sweet Maria's and coffeecorral.com, great places. And I was just testing it out, seeing how it went, seeing what flavors I got, seeing how to really roast coffee, selling it just to friends and family. I didn't have anything out there, really. It was just a hobby that I got really interested in. My girlfriend then, who's my wife now, Jade, she actually does all of our graphic design as well. So all those compliments we got about our graphics, that is Jade. She takes full credit for that.
All right.
Now, she was my girlfriend at the time, and she is actually Joe's cousin. So I started
That's
to
where
see
the connection was.
of like, yeah, people are interested in this. Like I was roasting way more than I could have. I was roasting into the night. That Bemo could only do like a quarter pound at a time. So So Jade saw that we needed some help. We needed to figure out how to really run a business. And she knew Joe. And I let Joe take over from this point, from his perspective.
So at this point, I hadn't met Kyle. Jade is my first cousin. We know each other our entire lives. And I just hadn't met Kyle yet. Kyle and Jade were together, but Jade came to me knowing that I was working in a construction business. I had a business degree, so I have some business insight, and I was looking for an opportunity. I was ready at that time in my life to I didn't want to work for somebody forever. I wanted to have my own business. I wanted to invest.
Yeah.
And Jade came to me at the right time. She came to me for some business advice, basically
Okay.
saying, my boyfriend Kyle is real into this coffee roasting thing. Um, can you give me some advice or maybe point us in a direction? Is this a business? Can this be a business? And I was interested immediately because I also like coffee. I what in the sense that I like going to coffee shops and buying a cappuccino. I really didn't know much about the dynamics of the industry.
Okay.
So, met Kyle. We kind of chatted about what the process was, basically what roasting coffee really was. I didn't really even know that much.
Yeah.
And then we looked around, and then I did some research about what the local market is and who is doing that. And I realized that there is an untapped market in the specialty coffee space. The only coffee roasters that are currently existing in Trinidad or regionally at the time were really commodity level roasters. They were roasting commodity price items to put in the groceries and that was really it. There was no real understanding of quality, different regions and flavors and all of that.
Yeah.
So we saw that as an untapped market. So I was excited right away, and Kyle and I decided to start a business and really see what this was. And the business was basically us buying a bigger coffee roaster because that little Baymore wasn't gonna cut it. And we bought what we thought was a huge roaster at the time. It was a 2-pound batch roaster called a Sono Fresco, an air roaster.
Yeah.
So we bought that roaster and we said, that's it. We're going to be specialty coffee roasters, and we're going to create this brand. We didn't know what the brand was. We didn't know if it was going to be called Full Bloom or what. But we figured we're going to do specialty coffee and we're going to supply the groceries and we're going to carve out a little niche in this space. And that's how we started. I had some money saved, waiting for the right investment, and we pulled the trigger. We bought the coffee roaster. We bought our first batch of coffee with the intention of let's get this thing started. And actually, that was the first roadblock we hit. That was we bought the coffee roaster. We cleared it at customs, and we were super excited. The next order was going to be our first order of green coffee. Right. So with the first hiccup that we had was the first importation of coffee beans. Yeah, and we ordered it online in one of those online suppliers out of the States. I think it was a few £100 of coffee that we placed as our first order. It was a couple $1,000 US worth of coffee, if I recall. Okay. And we thought, great, we're gonna bring in this premium Arabica beans, a few regions, and we're gonna really get started and make this a thing. The coffee arrived in country. We went to the bonded warehouse to clear it, and it was promptly seized by customs because we didn't realize that you needed to have import permits to bring in these green coffee beans. It's an agricultural concern, and it was promptly seized by customs and incinerated. So that was the first roadblock where we said, okay, did our business just die as soon as we started because we didn't realize we needed these permits to import coffee? And when we really realized, oh, there really are quite a lot of limiting factors that limit importation of coffee beans and regions. And we kind of realized, now we realize why nobody is really in the specialty coffee space here, because it's so hard to get the correct material you need to do it.
Yeah.
But you live and you learn, and then we kind of pivoted. We tried at that point. I don't want to maybe walk all over our talking points, but at that point we said, do we just start to look at local coffee? Are we just going to now be a local coffee producer because that's the only coffee that's really available, or at least in country? So and we dabbled in that, but then we found that there were limits in the availability of local coffee too. There really is not a lot. That industry is very depressed. It's very much a cottage industry now. There's not a whole lot of local coffee being grown in Trinidad.
Okay.
So that was a lot of pivoting back and forth, and we really we carved out our niche when we affiliated ourselves with Caribbean Roasters, where we were able to get steady supply of our premium Brazilian beans. And then,
shout out Jose. No.
That's how we got the ball rolling.
All right. Guys, what time period are we talking here? When did we start to dabble into
This is
this?
2016. Like pretty much everything up until this point is like 2016, early 2017,
Okay.
more or less.
All
Yeah.
right.
So if I could just talk about the cafe super quick, because I mean, as much as we are coffee roasters, we have a specialty coffee cafe, which is like the flagship for us. That's
Yeah.
pretty much the main business right now. We Our cafe is Full Bloom Coffee Roasters. We opened officially, I believe, in March 2017. We had a
Okay.
very small spot in a yoga studio, 150 square feet. I was managing the yoga studio at the time. That's how we got access.
All
So
right.
we were there about a year and a half, maybe, if so much. We then moved to an actual like footprint location, 32 DeVille Street. It had its own parking, it had its own cafe space, had a
Okay.
bar, kitchen, thing. First official spot. We were there up until we got shut down for the pandemic.
Okay.
That's when we had to kind of reevaluate what we were really going to do. Thankfully, for the pandemic, there was a lot of places that were available to rent. So while we had our entire shutdown period going on, which is about 2 to 3 months, we confirmed our current spot now, which is on Sweetbriar Road. It's a very nice cafe space now. So we set up there at the end of 2020, like 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right after we were about to reopen business, we reopened and we've been there ever since.
Okay.
So that's just the cafe pretty much in a nutshell. So between 2017 and now, we have been very focused on building the actual cafe side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worth mentioning that this wasn't really our initial intention. We thought that we were going to get a coffee roaster. We were going to roast for cafes and restaurants and put bags on shelves. We wanted to be coffee roasters. And just how life goes, we now have employees, we have baristas, we have a team, we have a cafe space, we have customers, and we have a spot.
Hmm.
It did not, that wasn't the intention, but here we are and it's doing well. So, you know,
Okay.
But I would say that the fact that we didn't intend to be. Sorry, I was talking over you, Kyle. I didn't realize it was breaking.
no, it's fine.
Yeah, no, just worth mentioning is that yeah, even though we didn't intend to have a retail coffee shop space,
Mm-hmm.
that is the reason why we have gotten as much adoption into the specialty coffee market as we have, because
Yeah.
that is an easier. I mean, if you don't know anything about coffee, it's easier for you to go into a nice cafe and get served a coffee that's prepared properly, and
Mm-hmm.
for you to realize, oh wow, this is actually coffee could taste awesome. Coffee doesn't just need to be roasted to hell black mud, I mean,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is, and that is the where we feel like having that footprint, having that storefront is really what has opened it up for
Yeah.
for the specialty coffee market, and I don't think we would be where we are if we didn't focus on that retail
Definitely not.
on that retail
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. So tell us more about that. So when a customer comes in, what can they expect when they come into your shop? What
You take this one.
in terms of coffee and drink choice?
Mhm. That's me, Joe.
Yeah, that's you guys.
Yeah. It is, I consider our cafe to be much more on the specialty and traditional side of menu offerings. Our initial cafe, very small spots, we had a very small menu. I would like to say that Full Bloom was the first place to start offering cortados and piccolos on the menu. I
Okay.
think for the most part that Trinidad has had a lot of coffee chains that have existed for a long time that have done well. So we're accustomed to the chillers, fraps, the large drinks.
Yeah.
We started bringing out the art of espresso pretty much when we
Mhm.
were building the cafe space out the first time too. One of the main factors that we saw as a competitive edge for us was not only fresh roasted coffee, but latte art. Nowhere was really doing latte art. There was no
Okay.
trained baristas. We didn't have a barista certification program in this country. So I went on YouTube and I looked and I practiced and eventually got to the point where I was doing some hearts on drinks, which was groundbreaking at the time.
Yeah.
And it started to get a lot of traction. It started to get a lot of attention. Eventually, I started getting little rosettas, maybe a swan every now and again. And I mean,
Okay.
people talk about it. They take pictures of it. They may not even drink it. They're like, oh my God, look at this place. And it
Yeah.
started bringing a lot of attention to the spot. But I mean, I just want to say this too. Like, we started doing a very traditional menu. But our biggest sellers were things like a cold brew latte or like an actual latte. And
Okay.
we've never really lost sight of those traditional style drinks. We kept pushing them. We brought out piccolos and cortados with different flavors. We started really pushing them on our menu. We now have a cortado that's pretty much our best seller. So we've seen the trend go from large coffee drinks coming down into smaller, more espresso-based drinks. And I think
Okay.
right now we've really cut out a niche where there are specialty coffee lovers in this country, fresh roasted coffee. So we saw a building appreciation for specialty coffee in this country. At that point, we started roasting a lot of Brazilian beans. That's what we had access to. And very small quantities, we would get like some other regions that were blend-ins. We started releasing a line of blends. And from there, we started to really gauge just the preferences of our clientele. I mean, they love a medium to dark roast. And we just pivoted a bit and stayed away from lighter roast, focused on what customers really liked, but did it to the best of our ability. So our dark roast isn't extremely dark. It's still very much in a medium city plus range. And our medium roasts, they are just on the edge of a light roast. So I'm trying to just bring it back into that specialty flavor. And yeah, I mean, I kind of lost my train of thought to that interruption there, but that's pretty much the gist of it. Hopefully that could, explain the
Yeah.
overview.
So when people are coming in, and you guys opened your cafe, what would you say the clientele, were they looking for specialty coffee? Were they just looking for a good cup? And over the last few years, you've helped transition them into specialty coffee?
Definitely, yeah. I think we had a lot of people who just knew that we had good coffee, and
Okay.
it was up to them to come by and kind of figure out what that really meant for them. So I've seen customers. The thing is, it's Trinidad. It's a small country. For the first 3 to 4 years of operation, I was pretty much the barista. I was there, met all these customers. I still have conversations with them. And I've seen some customers who have gone from ordering lattes, cold brew lattes, maybe just like a salted caramel something, because we had that available at the time. We still do, but they would eventually get curious about just what's an espresso taste like, what's a cortado or piccolo taste like, what's a macchiato taste like. So they were always curious, and they just needed a bit of a push to really experience it for themselves. And I mean, like I said before, now cortado is our best seller. Piccolo is just single shot of espressos, double shot of espressos. It's doing really well. So once the quality is there, they will naturally choose these items and stray away from things that are a bit more commercialized and available in other cafes. So we've seen the trend for specialty coffee really uptick. It's been impressive. I always thought that we were going to have to kind of stick to very safe options, but we've been really fortunate to be able to really explore just that specialty coffee side of things and still have fun with this. And customers they really like it. So it's great.
Okay.
The industry is.
And where are you guys located there in Trinidad?
We are in the Port of Spain area, Sweetbriar Road. It is pretty much near the capital, near the Oval. It's in a very central location. Our location is fantastic. It was very lucky. It is a great location to meet up in between work things, leaving home, going back home. It's a really nice place.
Yeah. I think that was one of the things that attracted me. It's like a old historic building or house of some sort. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Audrey Jeffer's house. It was built in 1906, if memory serves me correct. It was part of the original gingerbread houses that were built up in Trinidad. It was
Okay.
built for Audrey Jeffer's father. Audrey Jeffer is a bit of a prolific figure in our culture, I guess. She was one of the first female members of the Port of Spain Corporation and the board. She did a lot for the, impoverished side of Port of Spain. She is a real legend. We have an entire write-up about her on our website.
Okay.
Yeah, feel free to check that out too. Before I absolutely butcher the description here.
Yeah. No, that's good. I think those are some keys, right? Especially when you're launching something that is new to an area, is having the right location, a little spot that kind of attracts people. That setting and environment really can make a world of difference when you're beginning and introducing something to clients.
Yeah, for sure.
And what is the customer base? Are 90% locals? Do you get many tourists? What's that like?
A lot of it's mostly locals. I mean, we have our tourist high and low seasons. When Carnival, Christmas, summer comes around, we see a lot of tourists, which is nice. I think It's very diverse. For the most part, we do have a very working class clientele. I think the majority of our customers are usually on their way to work or on their way back from work or just having a meeting in between. Um, I always imagined having a space where, I mean, I'll just say it plainly, like I wanted somewhere where someone in a vest, a short pants, and a slippers could sit down next to someone in a suit, and it's completely normal. They are
Okay.
feeling both comfortable. There's no table service, there's no reservations. It's a very casual but nice spot for anyone to arrive and feel comfortable there. And I think we've achieved that. But it is mostly, you know, it's a lot of working class individuals for the most part. I mean, it's
Okay.
a very high turnover. We do a lot of takeaway, like people are popping in for meetings and heading out. It's a very, very busy place, for better and for worse, you know?
Yeah. Will you get many of those at-home workers come in and just hang out for a while, do the thing, drink
sure.
coffee?
Yep. They
Editing
pay, they pay
podcasts.
rent. They pay rent for per drink. They rent
Yeah,
the table
essentially.
for a day.
Some of them
Yeah.
pay rent, some don't. But, you know, they're there.
Yeah,
They're
for
there
sure.
regardless.
But
Yeah.
you know what? That's our customers. So we have a wide ranging clientele. It's interesting. Like the demographic of our clients, it's far reaching. It's quite interesting, and it's very reassuring to see that so much different people from different walks of life could all appreciate good coffee. So we definitely
Yeah.
feel like we're only now getting started. When we see that kind of interaction from the different groups, we definitely feel like we're onto something, and that the country is ready for, and not just
Yeah.
the country, but the regionally. I mean, Grenada, where you are, and up the islands, we're still in our infancy in this, what we can do with this type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think, you know, one of those benefits of COVID, it has kind of created that environment people are searching for, to be able to go to. It's comfortable, sit down, get some service. But it also sounds like you guys were one of the first cafes to open up outside of the chain ones. Is that correct?
I will, yes, I would say, but I would definitely say that we opened our first place right on the heels of Starbucks entering Trinidad's market. Like the first Starbucks opened in Port of Spain. But you know something? No, I mean, we really never looked at Starbucks as competition per se. We see Starbucks, for better or worse, is the most well-known specialty coffee brand in the world. And if Starbucks is entering a market and there's excitement for that product, that to us, we look at that as like the tide that raises all ships. Because if people are seeing Starbucks there and they want to go there, and that's the buzz is to go to Starbucks and there's a line around the block, we are just a little touch more on the specialty side than Starbucks is. So like if it is that people could go to Starbucks and enjoy that coffee shop atmosphere and have a cappuccino or have an espresso, and then that means that they're ready for specialty coffee, and that's where it's not a very hard touch for us to get those clients to come to us. So we see that really has transformed the awareness of specialty coffee more than just the commodity coffee that people are accustomed to. Just, you know, you buy dark roast coffee in the grocery and make a pot at home. Like the coffee shop experience from Starbucks really has given everybody a leg up. So so we are the first, I would say, first local trying to do it. The specialty side, we call it third wave coffee, is that what it's called. And we have now seen people come on the scene after us, maybe looking at taking lead from us. But I really think that we would not have been able to get as much traction had it not been for Rituals, or who's already a regional player, and then also now Starbucks. So we think that there's room for everybody. We think that there's so much room for the idea of coffee shops and specialty coffee. It's come on in, you know.
We'll see. Sometimes give it a moment. Do we do the nod?
Yeah.
The challenge is, Kyle, it doesn't give me audio feedback, so I don't know if he's still speaking or he's totally wiped out.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh man.
Yeah.
Did I freeze up, guys?
But, we'll see. He comes back. And for sure, I definitely believe the big players help shape and introduce people to coffee in a safe way. And then people are like, hey, you know what? What are the other possibilities? Or, oh, look, here's a coffee shop that I haven't tried. walk into
How deep is
there,
your?
you go into that experience.
Mm.
So those big companies definitely help with that, the education aspect or just the introduction to coffee.
Yeah.
Um,
I've um I've always had this kind of belief too. Like if you really love coffee, then you're just not loyal to any particular brand. Take
mhm.
it upon yourself, just try these different blends out, try these different brands, and really explore it. Like I don't expect anyone to just be at us every single day. It
Yeah,
happens, but like I would like for people to go out there and really experience all the different coffees that are available,
right.
and share it with us.
Yeah.
Guys, did I freeze up? Did I freeze up for half of my soliloquy?
I think
Yeah,
towards the end, Joe. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think we got it. We got the picture. Can you guys take
yeah.
me and help the audience understand what is how many employees do you have and what goes into getting them ready for coffee? Do they have a lot of experience in coffee? Do you guys look for that? Those types of things.
Right, yeah, that's pretty much me too. We have right now, I want to say 14 employees,
Okay.
which doesn't sound like a lot, but it feels like 1,400 employees at the
Yeah.
same time. Um, a lot of them do not have experience or did
Okay.
not have experience. We've all kind of done training in-house. Now, we have gotten lucky where we've gotten employees who have come from other cafe environments, but they would understand the workflow and just the general rules and policies that a cafe has to follow. But when it comes to the barista training side of things, there isn't much experience there. So a lot of the training has fallen onto myself for the early part. Right now, I would consider like 3 employees who have learned really well from me, and they are doing their thing. They're showing others as well. So it's a bit of a trickle down effect. So I'm not the only person training people. I do have what I consider to be a small team of trainees within the organization. But we have to do pretty much all barista training as they come into the organization. There's
Okay.
nothing that we could use from any other places.
Cool. Yeah. Um, So, speaking of the training, something I saw just recently ago, guys, Full Bloom offered a training course for a team of people, right, through an organization.
That was that was for Nestle. Nestle had their young barista program. They reached out to us, and it was very cool. So I'll just talk on that very briefly. Nestle is doing I think throughout the entirety of Latin America. They're trying to get 1 million baristas trained by 2030.
Okay,
So they just have these little vocational courses in different regions. And I was brought in as one of the teachers for the Trinidad section. It was just 11 people. But it was cool. I mean, these are people who just finished school. They're trying to figure out what trades that they're interested in. They're interested in working in cafes. And Nestle just facilitated it. We came in, I did a full day course with these girls. Latte arts, espresso extraction, understanding how this machinery works, the science behind milk foaming, and understanding how to work with milk, best practices to keep a cafe clean, how to service and fix equipment at the end of the day. It was really all encompassing, and they got a lot of experience. And I kind of want to hire a few of them, if I'm being honest.
yeah,
But it was a really, really great experience. And it's what I think to be the first time that we've ever had any sort of barista certification in this country. So to see the
okay,
trade now becoming really recognized for what it is, it's not just like food service. There's a food service worker and there's a barista. It's two totally different things, and it should be treated differently as well. So I'm seeing the recognition happen here, and I really, really appreciate it.
yeah. That's really exciting. First of all, it's an indication of all the hard work that Kyle and Joe have put into Full Bloom Coffee Roasters over the last few years. That a company as big as Nestle would reach out. Also, you've created the environment for something like that to be able to happen, uh, which you might not traditionally think about in a Caribbean island, and being so new. But also when I do some consulting with cafes, is that idea of upskilling people with skills that they can take no matter where they go, right? So
For
one of
sure.
these young people might go to college somewhere and need to pick up a job, and now they have this skill that they'll be able to be like, hey, I'm a bit of a trained barista, and be able
Yeah.
to do some of those things and experience it, or might just fall in love with it and work their way up through Full Bloom Coffee Roasters to
Hmm.
become a roaster or a green coffee sourcer or something like that.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of small business benefits if you like kind of jump in at the right time. And
yeah,
we're still trying our best to really expand our overall operations to accommodate all the talent that we have.
yeah.
So having employees does put a bit of a pressure on yourself to grow fast enough to support them.
Yeah, and we may speak about it later, but this is one of those things that we have to help the lawmakers understand of the dynamics of coffee, right? That it's not just a green agricultural bean, but it has
Oh yeah.
all of these various different tentacles um,
Hmm.
of employment and generating revenue and brand recognition, country recognition. Um,
Absolutely.
just the world barista champion is what from Brazil, if I speaking correctly.
Uh-huh.
So, you got things like that. You never know, right? You put your country on the map for something as such
Yeah. Agree.
and gain that recognition. All right. So, thank you for painting a really nice picture of Full Bloom Coffee Roasters. But the next part of the podcast, I would like to transition to talking about growing specialty coffee consumers in Trinidad and the relationships and some of the challenges that exist with this.
Mhm.
Um, so, in your customer base, what are some of the challenges of introducing specialty coffee throughout Trinidad?
Sure, yeah. Joe, you want me to speak on this or you want to?
So you go ahead.
Alright, cool. Yeah. So yeah, there was a lot of challenges at the start. I mean, I didn't learn to roast from any one person in particular. I had to look at a lot of information that I saw online and just keep adjusting my technique based on the feedback that I would get from customers who tried our coffee out. One of the things I noticed really early on is that there's a big push for lighter roast in the specialty coffee space. Um, Trinidad doesn't really like that.
Mhm.
I've tried my best. We've released multiple light roast blends. We've done light roast single origins. We have really, really tried, and we just don't see that connection with a Caribbean customer base. They want a lot of medium and dark roast. So I mean, as much as I had to kind of, how to put this, like, just release the ego there. Like, I came into this space thinking like, hey, I not much people know about roasting coffee. I felt a certain sort of pride that like I could show you all something completely new. This is what coffee could taste like. These tea-like flavors, these acidic and lemony notes, like you've never experienced that before. And to kind of be responded with like, oh my God, I don't really like how that tastes at all. It was like, all right, I kind of need to humble myself here and do the best that I can with my knowledge about roasting coffee for the clientele that I'm serving. So we started to adjust things. We started to take it into a bit of a more medium roast, maybe extending that developmental period when you're roasting to get a more of a caramelized, a bit of a burnt woody finish. And it's been working really well. So the challenges there are just knowing the clientele that we have to serve, having to break the rules a bit when it comes to roasting coffee to suit that clientele, and just knowing, understanding that even if I do it the best that I possibly can to what I think could work, the knowledge of specialty coffee and especially specialty coffee brewing is so limited for our overall clientele too that I don't know what they're doing when they take this bag of coffee home and they're going to try
Yeah.
and brew it themselves. There's a lot of bad practices that were happening. We've only now started to see an uptick with like, individuals having their own espresso machines, having an AeroPress even. For a lot of people, it's just a percolator in an office. Home brewing
Yeah.
wasn't really an option. Trinidad, for the most part, is not a big coffee drinking country overall.
Okay.
Seeing a trend of it now, probably because we're exposed to the people that now drink coffee. But for the most part, everyone's like, yeah, just a juice in the morning is fine, my tea. And
Instant coffee. Instant
it was
coffee
a
is still
Instinct.
the biggest seller of coffee in Trinidad. Brewed
Okay.
coffee, I think there's an interesting stat. So something like 15% of the coffee that's sold in groceries is brewed coffee. The rest is instant coffee.
Okay.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. So we had to kind of show people what coffee really is. To this day, people who have had coffee from me multiple times, there's a potential that they're still going to be surprised that coffee is a fruit. It comes from a bean, you know? There's still people who come to the cafe, for example, and they think that the espresso is just in the machine. Like you just hit dispense and the espresso comes out the tank on the inside. So we've put
Yeah.
a big emphasis on coffee education.
Right.
So we have these coffee tastings that we try to do every month. I
Okay.
always try to talk to customers and educate them on what coffee actually is, where it comes from. We've put up a lot of informational content on our pages as well as actually going to look at coffee farms in Trinidad, as well as around the world. We were in Costa Rica. Joe and I were in Colombia as well. We're trying to go some other places to see more coffee farms, but just to educate people on what coffee really is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that education part is the most crucial, and
Yeah, sure.
giving information and painting a picture, um, which is also interesting, right? Because Trinidad grows coffee. Is that, yeah?
It does. It has the potential to grow coffee. Do we want to get into this right now? Yeah.
Well,
Um,
let's talk about the process of acquiring your green beans.
right.
What are
Yeah.
some of the challenges of that? So, is it as
Yeah.
simple as just finding a farm in Trinidad, or where do you
No.
get your coffee? Yeah.
So we don't roast Trinidadian coffee at this current point. We don't have it
Okay.
consistently enough. I have done, let's say, specialty blends, including Trinidadian coffee, but the quantities, it's not much. I talked to some farmers and tell me like they have a ton of coffee available, and I'm like, great. Well, how much? 50 pounds. You know,
Okay.
that's considered a lot for them, and it's nowhere near enough to really have something sustainable. Now, I may not have this fully accurate, but to the best of my knowledge, I believe this is what happened. We have the Cocoa and Coffee Board of Trinidad and Tobago. The head of the cocoa and coffee boards told farmers to basically pay less attention to coffee. We could only grow Robusta. The exportability of it wasn't very high at the time,
Mhm.
but we grow amazing cocoa, and we do. Our cocoa is, world renowned. So a lot of farmers who were growing both cocoa and coffee and citrus actually side by side started to put a much higher emphasis on cocoa and basically left coffee farms,
Makes
just
sense.
ignored them and died. So we have a lot of cocoa available, which even now is starting to get a bit shaky with the cocoa producers that I'm talking to. But our coffee production more or less died out. Joe had mentioned that when we initially bought in the first 2 bags of green beans, we had an Ethiopia Yirgacheffe and a Honduras. It was incinerated. It was held. That's it. Can't get it. The Cocoa and Coffee Board has a legislation called the the Plant and Quarantine Division has the import certification, and green coffee beans are classified as seeds.
Okay.
So there is a bit of miscommunication that's happening, and there is a lack of updates to our legal systems when it comes to importing plant products.
Mhm.
So we are now at an impasse where the required information to import green coffee, we could get that document and give it to a green bean supplier, even based out of the States. And they watch this document and they're like, we don't do any of these things because it's irrelevant. So our legislation has been kind of left behind, and the current practices don't recognize that legislation to import anything. So it's a real difficult back and forth. Years ago, Caribbean Roasters and Hongwing, the two major coffee roasters in this country, huge coffee roasters, they managed to get import permits and really do a lot of legwork to get Brazilian beans into the country. It's still a difficult process. Permits are hard to come by, but it's possible, and it's possible for us. So the majority of what we roast is Brazilian beans.
Okay.
We from Caribbean Roasters, they import it for us, and we roast it, put it through, as well as our other specialty coffees that we get pre-roasted that we spoke about before. So in terms of Trinidadian coffee, it's few and far in between. I'm hoping to get some by the end of this year. I actually know a great local coffee farmer that I could put you in contact with. I should mention that. But it's difficult. Not many people are doing it. And the people who are doing it, a lot of them don't really care for it. The coffee trees on their plantation has always just been a byproduct. They're walking up to it. Any trees that are available, any cherries available, they're pulling that off, putting it in a bag, not cleaning it properly, and trying to sell it.
Yeah.
So coffee production is very much non-existent in this country for the most part. Unless, if anyone's watching this from Trinidad who has access to local coffee, hit me up, please.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
I can't.
Yeah.
But it is something that we would like to encourage. We really do want to, we want to, if there was the market, and we think that we can be part of that solution. Like, if there's a market for it, then that might change the narrative. I mean, the whole reason why they sell cocoa over coffee is because cocoa has higher yields, and there's Europeans who are willing to buy every pound of cocoa that is
Yeah.
grown. Um, our coffee is not anything special. It is just Robusta coffee. We don't have the altitude to grow Arabica coffee, but
Okay.
there's a demand. What the reason?
Absolutely.
The majority of the coffee that is drunk in Trinidad is Robusta coffee, but it is
Okay.
Brazilian Robusta coffee
Okay.
that is imported from Brazil. It's like very cheap because there is economies of scale and all that. And that is what is primarily roasted and packaged for sale in the groceries in Trinidad and up the islands. That's predominantly what it is because it's cheaper. So there is a market for it. So if the farmers were incentivized to know that, okay, if we grow this and we prepare it properly and we have it packaged and up to a standard, 'cause I don't think there really are standards for how these coffees are prepared and all this.
Yeah, no, we have
Then
no system.
that could transform the industry. There could be an industry there, but right now
Yeah.
it's really not.
Yeah. Joe, you were mentioning that about the geography or topology. Can you tell us more about that? Is it the elevations are not significant enough?
Yes.
Where the coffee's grown? Like Grenada, for example, used to be a huge exporter of coffee back during colonization. But then I walk around, I'm like, well, the tallest mountain is only 2,700 feet, and that's
Yeah.
really not that accessible. So yeah,
Yeah.
you probably grew a ton of Robusta, which made
Yeah.
sense for the time, and maybe that'll be the path that we take, as climate begins to change. But what's
Yeah.
what's the range of mountains like there?
We have a similar concern. I mean, our highest peak is only about 3,000 feet, and that's
Okay.
in the northern range. To the minimum altitude to grow Arabica beans, correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle, is like 1,000 meters. So it's about double the height of our highest mountain peak. So anything that's grown, the only Caribbean nation that has the altitude to grow Arabica beans is Jamaica, the Blue Mountain coffee. And the coffee that's grown at their highest peaks, I mean, it's good quality. But we just don't have the topography and to be able to grow Arabica beans. But
Yeah.
Robusta beans has far higher yield, and it's a lot easier. It's a lot hardier plant and a lot easier to grow. Very climate resistant. So
Yeah.
as a result, you could get more from one parcel of land. So as a result, it should be a cheaper product, and as a result, exportable. Like I said, the majority of the coffee that's drunk in the Caribbean is Robusta. So there's a palate for Robusta beans. A lot of people in specialty coffee tend to stick up their nose about Robusta because it really has a lot more caffeine and like it kicks you in the face with that kind of thing. But that's I know that I believe Lavazza, which is one of the most popular coffee brands out of Europe, has Robusta beans blended in their blend. So if we had good quality Robusta beans that was available to us at the correct price point, we would love to be able to have a blend, Robusta blends on offer, because there is a market for that, and that's really the long and short of it. I think people think specialty coffee, they think only Arabica, in which case it has to be high altitude stuff, but that doesn't necessarily need to be the case.
Yeah, for sure. If anybody who's into coffee listening to this podcast, there's been a ton of information out and across the journals recently about projects to make Robusta really decent quality, and planning for the future of coffee and the diversification as the climate begins to change. So maybe Trinidad is ripe over the next 30 years to create an industry of really high quality Robusta. And it may be, Kyle, through some of those young people you get in your training program that might find an interest in that. You never know, right? Agriculture is not just, hey, we plant a seed and do all that and we watch grandpa and granny, breaking their back, but it's so much more exciting when you get involved in some of these products and the challenges.
Definitely.
Yeah. So when you're importing with your relationships from Brazil, do you have the opportunity to select from different farms? What kind of coffees do you get to choose from Brazil?
We don't have a lot of choice, unfortunately, right now. Our
Okay.
biggest determining factor for the quality of beans that we get is the overall screen size and density. So for our Brazil, we go for a larger bean, on the pretty much a larger side, a screen 17 to 18 size, and we go for a nice dense bean as well from the Mogina region. That is our option, and that's just what we have to work with.
Okay.
We unfortunately do not have the flexibility of being able to contact individual farms to bring in any particular coffees that we want. It's a really ridiculous process. They are just like what we were just like what we were speaking about before when it comes to the importation of green beans. There's a lot of protections in place for the local coffee production, which no longer exists. That's inclusive of a 40% tax on bringing in pre-roasted coffees or coffees that can be considered roasted. So it's difficult and it's extremely expensive and it's a long drawn out process to try and get any of these other connections going. And sometimes when the wheels are turning, you don't really have time to check for alternative routes. You just have to see what you have, what's available, and kind of go with it. Now, we are luckily getting to a point where Joe and I work extremely hard. We are getting to a point now where we could actually just focus on these other projects to get access to this other coffee now. So just when you think, well, we're getting a break, we are just filling ourselves with more projects to kind of get other things going.
Yeah.
It's a long process. I wish it could be faster, but it is Trinidad that we're dealing with. Yeah, all we can do is just try.
Yeah. You sounds like you're doing the right thing and you're making the steps necessary. Um, and if you go back to any of the points in coffee and specialty coffee, just starting real small and continuing to work your way, education, providing those pieces, educating politicians. It sounds like a lot of work has to be around that, and them to understand the economics of the business and the benefits that it can bring to a country like Trinidad, and then across the Caribbean. Because
Absolutely.
as yeah, one thing I'm really hopeful, right, is this idea that some of these younger administrations are realizing the importance of intertrade, and being innovative in agriculture and those types of products. So I'm hopeful that as we continue to work together, we'll be able to get that change.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think I don't want to get too political about this at all, but I definitely think that this country has a tendency of taxation to de-incentivize outside imports and
Yeah,
force you to support local rather than subsidizing the local manufacturing to make it all better. So it makes it difficult. And I mean, for the industry that we're in, specialty coffee, I mean, this is what Joe and I love. This is what we want to do. I don't want to have to be forcefully stopped from doing this because of the ridiculous laws that
yeah,
are in front of us.
yeah,
We'll find a way to kind of push through and make it work for everyone here. I mean, even though people love specialty coffee, they love our specialty coffee too. They, I mean, I just want to kind of get this out there too. There's such a demand for local coffee, and the communication of that demand is just not getting to the farmers. I can
yeah,
only speak to the three that I know, but as far as from what those farmers have told me, a lot of other farmers who deal with coffee, it's like a colony of cats. Nobody really speaks to one another. Nobody's really like interacting too much.
yeah,
We need another cocoa and coffee board. We need another unifying force for our agricultural section, and they just need to know that if you grow it, we will buy it.
yeah.
Essentially, it is literally that simple.
Okay. In that conversation, uh, is the processing of the coffee system set up? Do we have mills, that type of thing? What would that process even look like?
I only know of one farmer that has a huller. So I was talking with another farmer out of Brazos Seco, and the price that they were giving me for their local coffee, which I was fully ready to pay, is close to 300% higher than the final price of the imported Arabica coffee. That's
Okay.
because it's five guys sitting down doing work. It is hours and hours
It's
and
intensive.
hours. So the
Yeah.
price for the amount of hours put in is fair, but it's
Yeah.
price. We just don't have any sort of incentives in place for them to get equipment and to really get this going. So it's a huge barrier for entry for even farmers to just start this. But with interconnected systems, this one farmer who has a huller who is very open to hulling other farms' beans, it could work. It's just to get a board in place to really kind of help manage and interlink these people.
Okay. Something I was just thinking about. Many know that Trinidad is a large manufacturer, but do you have to import a lot of your bags, cups, lids, that type of thing? Is that mostly importation?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
We our pouches are manufactured by a local pouch company.
Okay.
But all of our stuff that in the coffee shop, all of the consumable cups, all of that stuff is imported. We deal with local suppliers that import those things from away. They are local manufacturers, but a lot of our ideals in the coffee shop, we try to be as sustainable as possible. So all of our takeaway cups are all compostable packaging. So that sophistication of manufacturing isn't available in Trinidad yet. I hope that changes, but yeah. So most of the things that we use is all imported.
Yeah, our equipment, all the tools that we use behind the cafe, behind the bar, bag. Even our local manufacturer for our pouches, for our coffee bags, had to import our last batch of bags. Like it always comes back to imports, it seems.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff is on the shelf as well. Like we like coffee equipment, we like specialty coffee stuff, and we just don't have retailers for it here, so we have to import it.
Yeah. In your printing on the bags too, is that done in Trinidad?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I wonder if I have any here, right here.
Yeah, you definitely do.
Yeah, this was done locally actually. So there's a local company that is printing. Finally, it's been a while since we've had this kind of service here. Before that, we were just getting labels printed and importing bags and sticking labels on, but we finally have something that looks really good. That's locally.
Again, I think you said, Kyle, your wife is the graphic designer, and shout out to her because, man, your bags are spot on. You got to enter it into one of those competitions where, in the journals where you get, best bag design and.
Oh, cool.
And that.
Should really consider.
We should look into that.
Yeah, she's good. Jade has always been someone who has been able to see the vision and be able to just translate it so well onto just a physical object. Like the vibe of this bag pretty much matches the message that we want to get across. Just bright color, great branding, the write-ups, everything. She's a wizard when it comes to branding and marketing. Like she's an absolute asset for our organization, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's transition into shattering the status quo. So if we were to shatter the status quo of what coffee is looking like in Trinidad and across the Caribbean, what would that kind of look like? What would your vision be for that? Let's start off with changing coffee culture and consumption in Trinidad. What would be some big dreams that you might have about that?
Wow. I would. The first thing that came to mind is no more blended drinks. I have a vendetta with blended drinks and whipped cream. Don't call it coffee, please. But no, I think you could relate it to that too. I like where we're going now in terms of the appreciation for specialty coffee. I would like for there to be, just how we have the SCAA, Specialty Coffee Association of America, I would like there to be a Specialty Coffee Association of the Caribbean. Just basically a board or a governing body that recognizes when a particular product is being done in a way that is considered specialty. I would like for coffee to be treated very seriously and not just this thing that is treated the way that it is now in Trinidad. It's a bit of a byproduct. You go to a restaurant, the coffee is just there. You go to a cafe, like it's not treated very seriously. Just to kind of take it back a bit, where we started our cafe, the focus was coffee. At the time, there was nobody else really opening a store just to do coffee. I would like to see a lot more of that. I would like coffee to be on its own platform as it deserves and be treated with a lot more respect than it currently is treated. Because there's, like we spoke about, the farming, the manufacture, everything that goes into this. I'd like to see a lot more recognition for it. And it is happening. I'm not trying to detract from all the great things that we've seen and experienced firsthand, but I think it could happen on a much larger sense. That would be my main thing to shatter. Just our typical, I'll just shut up now. You could go ahead, Joe.
No.
Yeah. and what I think, I mean, the challenging on the status quo, I think in a perfect world, if the legislation was more accepting and lenient to the importation of the and just the supply chain itself, just internationally, to get access to premium beans or the beans that you want to work with, is just it'll transform what the industry can be. Um, Trinidad is a manufacturing nation. We're an energy producing nation. As a result, we have the opportunity with cheaper energy than a lot of other places. So as a manufacturer, because we do that in the industrial estates where we manufacture a lot of things, but cheap energy means that you can manufacture something for a more cost effective price than other places.
Yeah.
That coffee is one of the largest, is the second largest commodity in the world traded. And I think the opportunity is there with companies like us and others that once they see that there's a larger market to import these quality beans, roast it, make a product like what we have that could be exported internationally. It's a no-brainer to us who are in the industry, and it will, like I said, the tide that raises all ships. If it becomes easier for those things to happen, then that's just going to transform the industry, and that's just going to be for Trinidad. It's going to be regionally, and it'll just put that into more people's mind that this is an opportunity. This is still an industry in its early stages, and things just need to go the right way, and we could really do a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that definitely sounds right, and shaping some of the ideas. Man, thanks, guys. So as we begin to wrap up, how can audience follow you? Where should they follow you?
Oh yeah, we our page is Full Bloom Coffee TT. You can check us on Instagram. Our website is fullbloomcoffeett.com. We have Facebook, all the typical social things. Yeah. We are on 22 Sweetbriar Road. If you have it in Trinidad, it's right next to the Oval. You could just Google Maps it. It's there as well. That would be the main things to check out Full Bloom, pretty much.
Look out for us. We're doing we're trying to make to be available in more locations throughout Trinidad in the near future as well. We're looking to expand the coffee shop experience into other areas of the country and potentially regionally. So those are medium to long term goals of ours. And yeah, stay tuned. Definitely follow us on our social media. It's Instagram is how we're most active. That follow our story. We try to update our followers and customers about what we're doing and what we're trying to keep the heat on.
Yeah, definitely. So this next part is for advice for a listener. So outside of following you, right, because that's going to be one of their first steps, is there something you would want a listener to go out and kind of develop some knowledge base on their own, or is there somebody they should follow to learn more about coffee experience?
Right, yeah, definitely, actually. I think a good piece of advice, if you are someone that you buy coffee in the grocery, you take it home and you brew it yourself. I always try to tell people, like, turn that bag around and see if you can find a roast date on it, and see if you could always choose to buy bags that have a actual roast date on it. It just shows that there's someone who is manufacturing this. It shows that there's a human who is really doing this, just to support your local coffee roaster. Pretty much in any region that you are, any country, like if there's a local coffee roaster there, try them out. You'll be surprised at how good coffee can be. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably already like the coffee, so I'm giving redundant information here. But yeah, I think it's one of the best things you could do. I give some advice that the farmer that I work with here, his name is Floyd. He gave me some really good advice. If you have space in your yard, plant a coffee tree. Just plant a few, let it grow. See that happen, you get to understand it, and the more coffee that's available, it's the more coffee that's available. If there's a neighborhood that has coffee trees just growing, that is an opportunity for a farmer, essentially. He will come, take it, organize, you could get some cash for it too. Like if you have the space, just plant coffee. If you love coffee, plant it. People to follow, Floyd unfortunately doesn't have an Instagram, he's the best, but follow Joe. I'm not really too sure there. You can go ahead, Joe.
I think the idea is that there's a wealth of information online, especially like the Instagram pages. Follow other coffee roasters. I mean, if it is
Shout out Noah Coffee Lab for sure.
Sure.
Those guys are great.
Follow, and I think that everybody that's trying to do what we're doing, they all have a story and they're all trying to do something. So I think support social media is one of the best ways to support people, because you follow somebody, you understand their story, they get more awareness, they're able to market their products to you. So I think definitely be open to wherever you go, like what Kyle was saying, pick up a bag of the locally roasted coffee, follow them, give them some support, and talk to them. Most coffee roasters are really excited about talking about their product, and
for sure.
It's that'll be contagious, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Not just coffee roasters, guys, but you guys have a cafe in a beautiful space too. So whether you operate just a cafe or you are dual, or maybe even someday the trifecta, you'll have the cafe, roastery, cafe, and you guys you'll get one of those farms going as one of the next projects.
Sure.
But Joe and Kyle, thank you so very much for joining us today on the Caribbean Coffee Collective podcast, where we tell the coffee stories of the people and places across the Caribbean. And so thank you, guys. Be brilliant, and catch you another time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. So much.
Blessings.
Thank you for listening, and we hope you've enjoyed this coffee story from the Caribbean. This episode, Specialty Coffee, has touched down in Trinidad and Tobago with Kyle and Joe, who are the founders of Full Bloom Coffee Roasters, located in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. Details on how to connect with Kyle, Joe, or the Full Bloom team are in the description. Follow us on this journey of Caribbean coffee stories. Click that subscribe button to share more of the coffee stories of the Caribbean. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and engage with us in the comments. You can listen to this podcast on YouTube Podcasts, Spotify, follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Caribbean Coffee Collective Podcasts. Thank you, and as always, be brilliant.